Morning, everybody. Happy Father's Day. Happy Father's Day to my son-in-law. My daughter just had a baby yesterday morning in New York City, and we've been weathering that storm for a while and glad to announce the birth of Daisy Claire McGlynn. And so we're happy to have her in this world today. She's bringing some bright light. Like I said, they've been weathering everything going on in New York City, and things went perfectly. And we're so happy and so proud. I think she was 9 to 52 centimeters long. So she's a big girl ready for a big world, and we're sure glad she's going to be a part of it. Today, we're going to talk about dads. It is Father's Day, and I was blessed with the greatest dad there is. I've had a couple good dads. I've had my dad, my father, my biological father, who's still living and was just the best. I've also had some wonderful influences on my life. Nothing like my real dad, but I've had some outstanding coaches in my life, and I've had some outstanding ministers that just took me under their wing and treated me with so much dignity and respect, and just have really helped me. So people can be fathers, and we need fathers today. It's not just necessary biological fathers, but obviously they are the most important figures in a child's life. But people can be adopted, people can be picked up and loved on by people that just see they need a child. A child needs a father, and they can just give them that kind of attention and time. So important. It says in Proverbs 23:22 through 24. It says in verse 22, "Listen to your father who gave you life, and do not despise your mother when she is old. Buy the truth and do not sell it, wisdom, instruction, and insight as well. The father of a righteous child has great joy. A man who fathers a wise son or daughter rejoices in them." Well, children are going to listen whether we think they're paying attention or not as fathers. We need to keep that in mind. They're listening either with their eyes and their ears. They're listening to attitudes. They're listening to complaints. They're picking up how we operate with other people. If there's prejudice involved, they're absorbing it. If there's complaining involved, they're picking it up. They're picking up the subtle stuff as well as the direct information. And so it's important that people that take on the role of a father, especially biological fathers, are true who they are, in that they show their children how to live and how to respect others and how to believe in themselves and how to believe in God. I was listening the other day to something that Barack Obama said, and he said that one of the greatest threats in our country today is absent fathers. And he literally meant physically absent fathers, people that have children but then leave raised by parents or mothers or whatnot. And here's the deal. It's not just we can be absent in flesh. We can also be absent right up here. Kids need attention. They need affirmation. It's easy to be a dad. It takes time, it takes commitment, it takes dedication, it takes speaking the truth of love. It's not easy to be a father, but there's a lot more to missing out on raising a child being physically absent, although I do believe that's the worst thing we can. Obama said that a child without a father is 5 times more likely to be poor, 9 times more likely to drop out of school, and 20 times more likely to end up in jail. And I think that's true. That somebody who's looking for an identity, and yet it's not spoken by the complete set of a mother and a father, is going to settle and accept an identity elsewhere. You can send your kid to school. School's great. But a lot of times, if the parent's not speaking into their child's life and listening to their days and actually putting aside their self-interest for the interest of their kid, and I'm not talking about spoiling them, I'm talking about paying attention to them, affirming them for who they really are. They will take on the identity that one of their peers tells them at school. If their peer calls them the ugly girl, they'll believe it. If their peers call them the slow one in class, or treat them like they can't read very well, or they're not as cool as they are, they'll give them an identity. They'll say, well, that kid can't do this and that kid can't do that. And they'll get in their little peer groups, and your kid could very well be excluded. Or worse yet, perhaps be a part of a peer group that looks down on other people and doesn't treat them correctly and misuses them with the abuse of language. I mean, kids can be some of the most vile among us when it comes to just really giving other kids a hard time, bullies, etc. Well, here's the deal. They pick that stuff up at home. They're watching. They are listening. They should listen. They should watch. But they're looking for good character. And that's what we need to demonstrate. I mean, if we talk about, how tough we are and how somebody better get it together, or we don't like that person that just moved in down the road, or we got a funny feeling about so-and-so, depending on how it's said and depending on the attitude by which it's presented, maybe just you and your spouse complaining about something or whatever, the kid's going to pick it up and it's going to be reflected in their attitude. Of course, nobody's perfect, and neither are we as parents, and our children certainly won't be, and we shouldn't expect them to be. But sometimes we're too quick to defend them for things when they really need to learn the lesson the hard way. We're so quick to rush up to the schoolhouse sometimes and say, well, my kid didn't do this, or my kid would never do that, when in fact maybe we should listen. Maybe we should pay a little bit of attention and make sure that we're hearing things clearly and not just jumping to conclusions and giving our children the false thought that they're more important than they really are. It's time that we quit raising our children like they're these little gods. And I think it's that way because they're so precious when they're so little. So we just keep kind of worshiping their whole lives. But it's not good for them. They're not gods. Life isn't going to go their way. And it's wrong for us to act like it will when it's not. We have to be honest. Fathers have to speak truth in love, like I said earlier. Mothers are naturally built, that when a baby's born, they're going to nurture that child. They're going to provide that child with a sense of comfort and love and protection that a father is physically incapable of doing, in that, we're not going to feed them the second they show up, kind of thing. So we're different. So what do fathers do? The mothers seem to play such an important role. Well, so do dads, of course. Dads are the ones who provide the comfort. I was thinking the other day, thinking about my daughter being pregnant and about to deliver, how many babies have been delivered over time. And I remember during one of the tsunamis, a couple years ago, I read about a lady that they found with a baby in a tree, and come to find out the water was beneath the tree and she had the baby alone in the tree, and they both lived through it. I mean, it's amazing what people can do, and people have been having babies forever. Mothers are such a special part. So you say, okay, well, that's what mothers are just more important. They're better. No, they're equal too, because the dad is the protector. When the mother's giving childbirth, for example, let's say back in the further depths of our ancestry, the dad's watching out. He's looking. He's making sure there's protection involved, that the mother's comfortable during this situation. But during all of it, we know how it is. The man was the hunter. He still has that inclination to hunt, to protect, to defend his. He's got to be a part of the family unit. And he speaks what he does. He helps speak life into that child. He helps identify that child. Where there's a kid at the school saying, well, your kid's not smart enough. You know what? That kid's going to call my kid dumb. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to accept the fact that my kid's going to receive a lot of brutality during their life. However, I'm going to see to it my kid is smart. I'm going to speak smart into them. I'm going to teach them. I'm going to take the time to do things with them. I'm going to go places with them. I'm going to do special things with them. I'm never going to let myself be so busy that my children don't come first. And I don't mean first in that they're better than everybody else and I'm going to spoil them rotten. No, I mean, I think they should be first because that's my child. That's a gift the Lord gave us as mothers and fathers. That children are a gift from God. And so, you know what? It's a pleasure to raise them. It's a joy to raise them. I know fathers right now who've raised children that they're not even their biological fathers. They've taken them on. They've put them in their life and they speak truth to them and they love them and they spend time with them. But you know what the problem is in our culture? A lot of times we're just too selfish. We're so silly about the things we get passionate about. From a chainsaw to a baseball game to whatever. Man, if your kid needs attention, you got to give it to them. That's the job of a father. And I'm telling you, it's not always easy. It can be tough. Kids can be tough. Nothing can test a person's stamina like a child, especially one that's really, really independent and a free thinker. But you know what? You know what they want? They want to be loved. They want to be loved for who they are, not what we think they should be, not what we intend to turn them into. They just need to be loved for who they are. You know how many kids are addicted to drugs or alcohol or abusive lifestyles or just turned out to be terrible at certain things? You know what the thing is? They want to know you love them anyway. I'm not saying you accept their behavior, and I'm not saying you're not there to help them. But I'm saying you've got to love. They want to know, I know you love me when I'm what you want me to be, but do you love me when I'm who I am? Even though I've got to fix myself, even though I've got to improve, even though I've got issues and problems, do you love me anyway? Or do you, Dad and Mom, only love me if I'm a certain way? Man, parents are like God in that regard. Our Father God takes us as we are. He helps us. He changes us. He improves us. He loves us. He nurtures and speaks identity into us. But you know what? He's always there, unconditionally loving. There's no standard you have to meet except the standard of brokenness, that you believe God loved you so much that Jesus Christ died on the cross on your behalf. And you've accepted him in your heart. You receive that patience, that kindness, that teaching, that benevolence that comes only from God. And that's what it is to be a parent. It's to love your kids no matter what. Don't expect them to fail. And if they do fail, help them. If they want your help, help them. When they're young, you have to help them. You have to teach them. You have to guide them, because in this world there's going to be successes and failures, and they need to learn to know how to live with both. But let's say you have an adult child and they've just really made some horrendous mistakes in this life. I know your heart's broken. Whose wouldn't be? You would do anything for your child. You would die for them, but you don't have to. Jesus already did. And all you can do is get on your knees and say, God, help me be a better parent. Help me be a better father. Help me love my children like you love me. Help me receive them. Help me be patient with them. Help me be gentle with them. Help me not try to make them into what I want, but what they are in your guidance. You say, well, then you're ignoring your kid. No, you're not. You're praying for them. Tears are coming down your face. You listen. You accept, like the prodigal son. Father, remember the prodigal son gained his wealth and his father gave it to him, and he didn't want to stay home, and he left home and he ran off and he spent all his money and he made a bunch of mistakes. He made a bunch of bad choices, and he ended up in the pig pen, eating the pig slop and sleeping with the pigs just to get along. And he was afraid to go home because he thought, I've already rejected my father. What if my father rejects me? But his father didn't reject him. As the son humbly came up the hill, the father was waiting. And I could see him in that robe and slippers, back in the day, running to meet his son, because God runs to anybody who comes home. We got to do the same, guys. We got to quit speaking negativity into these lives. Not be falsely optimistic, but be real, be true, and love them no matter what. We can't leave them. We can't abandon them mentally, physically, or spiritually. Boy, that's the big deal. Dads are kind of like shy or scared or intimidated to teach their children to respect and believe in God. God's not out to be a tyrant or to take and hurt people's lives. God's out to love. God's out to feed, to serve, to care about the weak, to help the poor, to be there for the needy. God is not about taking control and ruining people's good lives and their good fun. God's about changing hearts to take better care of the world and the people we live with. Nothing wrong with that. Okay, so I thought of a great thing that I think we as fathers need to teach our kids, and we need to apply it to our lives as well. Matthew, Jesus is teaching, Matthew 7:24 through 27. Everyone then who hears these words of mine and does them, listen, if we hear the words of Jesus and we don't just let it go away, we don't just say, oh, that's religious stuff. No, we really listen to Jesus. We have the strength and the courage to read the Bible for ourselves, or perhaps take our families to church. Nothing wrong with that. We should be doing it. Whether it's your child biologically or not, you should take your kids to church and let them hear the teachings of Jesus Christ. Whoever hears these words and applies them will be a wise man, like a wise man who built his house on the rock. Listen, guys, we've got to build our houses on foundations that are stable, that are strong, that are true. There's nothing wrong with teaching and speaking and loving and guiding your families about God. We got to build our hearts on the rock. Okay, verse 25. And the rain fell and the floods came and the winds blew and beat that house, but it did not fall because it had been founded on the rock. Listen, if you want to have a solid life with a solid family, build your home on the rock. Raise your kids to think for themselves, to make decisions about God for themselves. It is their choice. You can't force them, but keep that rock there. Show them because they're listening, like I said, with their eyes. Talk to them because they're listening with their ears. Show them, teach them the way of God. I know that my kids aren't perfect. I certainly wasn't perfect, and my parents did a good job. You know something my parents did? I never saw a beer in the refrigerator growing up. I never thought about it, ever. I'm not saying we were perfect. I'm just saying I raised mine the same way. Alcohol is one of the biggest problems in this world. Of course, you can drink if you want. In fact, it says a little wine's good for the soul. However, to that be your thing, you come home and you start guzzling every weekend, you go partying, you guzzle, you go camping, you guzzle. Man, your kids are picking it up. And just because you don't have a propensity to alcoholism or addiction doesn't mean they won't. Got to think. We got to be more solid. We got to be more grounded. We've got to be honest. I made mistakes as a kid. When my kids asked me or I felt like telling them about them, I did. So you go, well, I'm too afraid to be a little better than I am right this second, especially just because of my kids, because the truth is it'll make me hypocritical. Hey, just tell them the truth. Speak the truth. It's okay. They love you. They can handle it. You know how it is if you go off your rocker or something and you just need to sit down and say, kids, I'm so sorry. Man, they're so quick to forgive and love. They love their mom and dads, but they need their dads. Just like they need their moms, they got to have a dad. And dads, if you're going to do it right. Come on, guys. Let's see. The house did not fall because it was built on the rock. 26. And everyone who hears these words of mine and does them will not be like a foolish man who built his house on the sand. Hey, if you don't think there's foolish stuff going on out there, you're crazy. Your kids are being taught foolish ideas. They're being challenged to question their own genetics, or not their own genetics, but their own gender, maybe their genetics too. Listen, let's face it, guys, there's a lot of stuff going out there, and they got to be tough enough to deal with it, and we have to be tough enough to teach them right from wrong. But here's the thing. If their dad is what they pick up from sports figures, not that there's not a lot of great ones, what are we teaching them? Those guys aren't heroes. You're their hero. In their minds, you can hit 100 home runs. In their minds, you can quarterback. Come on. You're their hero. You're going to give them over to somebody else to raise. Same thing with social media. You're going to let them get in on all that stuff. I'm not saying they can't be on Facebook and stuff, but you need to know what's up. They're going to start believing lies. They're going to start thinking that certain groups or singers or writers or activists or whatever, pacifists, are more important than you are in their life. You need to speak truth and build a foundation on God and not just foolish things and emotions and things that are just running rampant that don't make a lot of sense because they're not put in the right perspective. That's your job. And the rain fell, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat against that house, and it fell. And great was the fall of it. Jesus is saying, look, we can build our families on solid ground, or we can give them up to foolishness. And when their house falls, when we're long gone, and their ideas just fall apart because they really weren't based on truth to begin with, it's going to be a hard fall. We don't want that. We do not want that for our families. We do not want that for our children. We want to be dads that they can listen to and dads who listen to them. They're going to say stuff. We should listen. We can support. Maybe their ideas disagree with ours, and maybe they're right. Maybe we should listen more. It's okay. God gave you those children to raise. It's a wonderful thing to be a father. It's a wonderful thing to celebrate Father's Days like today. It's great because there's nothing like a kid. There's nothing like that kid. There's nothing like the love you feel when you hold that child and it's yours. I remember looking into my first daughter, Rachel's, eyes when she was born. Big blue, thunderstorm blue eyes is what I've always thought of them. Just as alert as they could be. And I held her and I just wept, hoping and praying that God would protect her and guide her and help me be a decent enough dad to give her a little bit of a chance in this world. And you know what? I had 3 others, and I've done the same with all of them. And I can't help it. They come first. My wife comes, I consider her a team. She and I are together. We're one. Like the joke I've said, I might have even told you guys this, about the married couple that when they got married, the preacher said, now you're one. And they went off for the next 40 years and fought about which one they were going to be. I've been there, but we're one. So I consider her and I together in this thing, but we're there for our kids. How many times have we gone off to see one of them do this or go to a dance recital or whatever, and we leave them and they're with their being babysat or whatever, and all we do is talk about them the whole time we're gone because we love them and we want them to have a good chance in this world. And I know you, my fathers, feel the same way. We're all in this together. We're dads. We don't need society telling us how to be a dad. We need the perfect dad to tell us how to be a dad, to sacrifice, to love unconditionally, to be there, to have people's backs, your kids especially, no matter what. It's good. It's good to speak truth. It's good to be a father. It's good to have a chance to love in this way. Do it. Enjoy it. Take advantage of it. Bless you, Ryan, my son-in-law, with you and your new baby. May God bless both of you. May God bless all you fathers out there. In the name of Jesus. Amen. Okay, guys, thanks for tuning in. I will talk to you Wednesday in my little grace chat. Thank you for listening. God bless you. Have a great day.